Who are the top 10 most powerful characters in Hunter x Hunter? Shout out to Crimson for asking me this, and thank you for saying honorable mentions are allowed because I've got 5 of them. There are so many different forms of strength in Hunter x Hunter that it's really hard to kind of categorize a definitive top 10. So I will say that amongst these 15 people, they're probably wildly interchangeable, but let's get into it. All right, so to kick things off, let's go through the honorable mentions in no particular order, starting with Nanika slash Aluka Zoldyck. And she's just a cheat code, right? She could feasibly be put at number 1 on this list just in terms of like raw power and feats that we've seen, but it's hard to really attribute that to a singular character because we know that Aluka is actually possessed by one of the calamities of the Dark Continent, one of the 5 great threats, which has the ability to grant wishes. So makes her really hard to place, thus honorable mention. Next up, I've got Poof, one of the Chimera Ant Royal Guards, and clearly he is next level in terms of what he is capable of, especially with his Nin, but he doesn't necessarily translate to like a one-on-one prowess type of fighter. He's more utility. Extremely powerful, don't get me wrong, but I can't quite place him in the top 10. Next up, I've got Prince Saradnik of the Kakin Empire, and this guy is currently being set up to be a tremendous villain. He is one of the greatest nin prodigies that we've seen in the series, but he's such an amateur still. So he doesn't yet qualify to be in the top 10, but I could easily see him getting there. My next honorable mention is very much in the same vein as Saradnik. It's a pick based on potential, and that is Gyro, because we know he is presumably being set up to be a main antagonist for Gon later in Hunter x Hunter, assuming Togashi's health continues to improve and we actually get to see Hunter x Hunter fleshed out all the way to the end. I have a feeling this guy will end up in the top 10. And then my final honorable mention spot is going to go to Crollo. And I know this one might upset some people, and I don't blame you for it because I think you could firmly place him within the top 10. It's just so crowded of potentially strong people that he just got barely edged out for me. So this brings us to our top 10, kicking it off with Kurapika. And honestly, he edges out Crollo in these rankings for me just because of the protagonist buff more than anything else. I think the two of them are actually very similar. They're both geniuses. They're both fueled by revenge, very cold and calculated. So if you made me pick between them, I'm going to go with the good guy out of the two, right? So I think that, his strength is very situational, obviously going to be much stronger against members of the Phantom Troop, but he's got strength outside of that realm, and again, carried by his intellect here. So I think he rounds out the top 10. Then coming in at number 9, I've got Hisoka, and you might be saying, wait, but he lost to Crollo. And you're right, but I think he's gotten way stronger since then due to post-mortem Nin, and also he just seems to be like one radder lung higher in terms of like antagonist in this narrative. So I think he ultimately will be stronger than Crollo and more of a threat than him. Then coming in at number 8, I've got Zeno Zoldyck, the patriarch of the Zoldyck family. I think he's currently the strongest of the Zoldyck family, Nanika withstanding, and one of the few people that Togashi said is the highest level of Nin in their field, in the ultimate level. So I think this one pretty much speaks for itself. He's obviously on the older side, outside of his prime, but I think he's still not messing around. Next, coming in at number 7, I've got Yuppie, another one of the Chimera Ant Royal Guards, and this guy really does put the Chimera in Chimera Ant because he can morph his body to basically take on any attributes he needs. Like, he was a force to be reckoned with, and if not for the disease from the rose, I think this man would have been a massive problem. And then coming in at number 6 to round out the Royal Guards, I've got Pito. She was the strongest of the 3, in my opinion, and just so versatile. Not only could she heal virtually any injury if given enough time with it, but her offensive capabilities were just off the charts. Just imagine if she had more time to develop. And now to kick off our top 5, I'm coming in with Gene Freaks, Gon's father. And like I mentioned at the start of this, a lot of these could be wildly interchangeable. I am going to place him above the Chimera Ant Royal Guards just because I think, just based on narrative and aura and potential, he seems above them in my opinion. But we haven't seen too much from him to be able to definitively place him. And I actually just put out a video on him, so if you're interested in what we have seen, check that out. But for me, he comes in at number 5. Then next up at number 4, I've got Beyond Netero. To me, he is on that same level as Ging, but I'm going to give him just a little bit of an edge due to, again, aura and narrative. He seems to be being set up as a pretty big antagonist, not necessarily evil per se, but just against the odds and wishes of our good guys. So he's also Netero's son, right? He's also been to the Dark Continent and survived. Beyond that, no pun intended, we don't know much about him, but clearly he's strong. And then coming in to kick off our top 3, I've got Isaac Netero. And I do think that there's an argument to be made that both Beyond and Ging could be feasibly above him, considering he is so old and out of the prime of his life. But considering we actually get to see his strength on full display, and Beyond and Ging are both still somewhat of a mystery, I'm going to give him the edge in this ranking. And then coming in at number 2, I've got Adult Gon. And I don't know if this is a controversial inclusion or not, considering it's not like the character Gon's true strength, considering he basically cheated out to his most prime form, but it would feel wrong not to include it. So I'm slotting him in at number 2 because he is clearly above Netero in my opinion, considering Pito's reaction to his strength compared to Netero's. She was worried that Gon could actually defeat Meruem. And that is obviously a perfect segue into my number 1 slot, the king of the Chimera Ants, Meruem himself. This guy was clearly just so built different compared to everyone else in the series. Netero, despite his best efforts, really couldn't even scratch this guy. Now, literally, we'll say he got some scratches, but even his best moves, he got up every single time, you know? It took the Black Rose and a disease to actually take him down. And just the way he continuously evolved, he had no ceiling, right? He could just continuously consume more and more nin and get more and more powerful, and his abilities evolved along with it. So had Meruem actually had a chance to survive, I think that this was going to be disastrous. You know, maybe Adult Gon could have taken him on, but at some point he probably would have even eclipsed that just due to the nature of how he can grow. So I'm interested to see, you know, of the Meruem we actually got to see, how long will it take for somebody to surpass this guy? Anyways, y'all, that's my list, at least for now. So don't hold me to it too hard because like I mentioned, those are wildly interchangeable. And not only that, we've got some big dogs potentially on the come up in the Succession War arc. So Rydnik, like I mentioned, but we've also got a few other Khakeen princes that, you know, could go crazy if they continue to develop. So we'll just have to see, and we might have to update this after this arc, and especially the Dark Continent arc stops. But we'll just have to see. But also, let me know y'all's lists. I was talking to a few of you in the Discord as I was working on this video, and I loved hearing who your top 10 was. So let me know down in the comments below, or better yet, join the Discord, get the conversation going with us there. Would love to get more Hunter x Hunter people in on the fold. And while we're talking about the Discord, we got a million watch parties coming up. So if that's your jam, be sure to find the link in all the normal places and come hang out with us for those. We've been doing Dandadan every week as new episodes come out. We're doing Bleach every week as new episodes come out. And then our main big watch party we're doing next is actually Arcane Season 1, which I have not seen, and Season 2 is about to come out. So we're actually going to kick that off this Sunday and then watch all of the rest of it the following weekend. I think it comes out like it's in 3 parts. So we're watching 1 part this Sunday and then parts 2 and 3 next weekend. So would love to have you join us for that. And I've been yapping too long now, so let's wrap things up. But finally, one last shout out to Crimson. Thank you so much for the support, and thank you all for watching.